and welcome to this episode of The Dig. I'm Jamie and I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about leadership and captains in volleyball and the specific roles of each. Before we get started, I just want to remind you to go to miloathlete.biz and check out everything we have to offer. You can find all of our podcast episodes at miloathlete.biz/The Dig. You can get a little more information on each one of them and all sorts of freebies, so go check that out. Now, we're going to talk about captains and leadership. They are not always the same thing. Captains are not always leaders, and leaders are not always captains, although typically captains want to be good leaders, and good leaders tend to want to be the captains on the team. So while they are two different things, they oftentimes, at least people want them to go hand in hand. So we're going to talk about each. The first thing we're going to talk about is captains. It's a specific thing designated in the rule book, and there's all sorts of, other duties as assigned by your coach, but what you need to know if you are elected captain. First thing I should mention is there are a lot of different ways to elect captains. The first way is that the team could just vote on captains, and the top, 2 or 3 vote winners, they get to be the captains on the team. The other way is that the coach would just pick the captains and pick the people that they think will be best in that role. There's also the third way where you can do a mixing of the two. The coach might pick a captain and the team could pick a captain, and then those people are captains. So they're kind of, one of each. So if you are the captain, you're going to be in the captain's meeting before the game, and that's where they're going to go over the rules. Typically, they go over specific rules of the gym, so they'll point out, the floor, the lines on the floor, what colors they are, if there's any overhead obstructions, basketball hoops and stuff like that. They're going to cover if those are playable areas or not, and why. They'll tell you if there's any special concerns. If you're in a tournament and there's been something brought up several times, they'll talk about how they're going to address that going forward. They'll talk about, just all sorts of different things. If at that time you have any questions, then that would be the time to ask the ref that. So maybe the opposing team has a really rowdy fan base, and you're like it interferes with the game somehow, you might address it with the ref at that time and just say, this is what we've seen going on. Is there, what are we to do about it? And so a lot of times they can't do anything. If somebody's just being loud and rowdy, they're not gonna be able to do anything. But if somebody is being, using a noisemaker or being really poor sport, something that a school doesn't really want to see, then they may end up being booted out or whatever. Refs get to kind of they control the game. So if there's anything that you have that you're worried about at the coaches or at the captain's meeting, that's the time to talk about it. During the game, the coach needs to specify a speaking captain. So you might have 3 captains on your team, but the coach is going to mark down 1 captain, and that's the person who's allowed to go and talk to the ref. If the speaking captain comes out of the game, then the ref will ask the coach, who do you want as your new speaking captain? They'll usually just pick one of the other captains that's on the floor. But at all times, there has to be a floor captain on the floor, and they're the person who's allowed to go and talk to the ref and address any concerns. If you get into higher levels, then the ref really isn't going to listen to the coach all that much, or not always, but some refs are going to ignore the coach a little bit and say, you really need to be sending your captain to talk to me. Now at the lower levels, or if you're new to the sport or something, they're not going to expect you to know all the rules or anything. But as you get older, and you become more comfortable with that, it's more of a responsibility of the players to go and address things with the refs respectfully, if you don't want to get in trouble, but you can go and talk to the refs. So those are the official duties of a captain. There are lots of unofficial duties. Captains are usually in charge of organizing things. So, where are we going to eat? Where are we going to stay? They get to make a lot of decisions, jerseys and bags and just all sorts of stuff. Then a lot of times they get the final say, or they will bring it to the team for a discussion, whatever, but they're going to be the ones that get to a lot of input on those things. So depending on who your coach is and what they expect out of their captains, some captains are put into the role where in preseason, they're going to be doing some of the workouts, or even some of the open gyms. They're going to be running things like that. Preseason, a lot of preseason stuff fall on captains. Some coaches will have the captains run warm-ups. Some coaches are going to expect their captains to speak before the game or speak sometimes at practice. A lot of coaches are looking for insight from their captains, especially if they elected the captains. If the coach picked them, then they're going to want that captain to bring, anything to them that they think that the team wants addressed. So things like that. Captains are more of a designated role, like for organization, for kind of a hierarchy of things. They're not always the best leaders in the world, and just because you're elected captain doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need to work on your leadership skills. So with that, let's get into the leadership role. Because there can definitely be, say 3 captains on a team, or maybe let's just say there's 1 captain on the team. But then there's one exceptional leader who isn't the captain. Leaders, the definition that I like to think about for leaders is their influence over direction. So if you have one captain on the team who is, hardcore volleyball player, and their direction is towards some kind of end of season goal, and then you have somebody on the team who's maybe, not really, like, they do volleyball for the fun of it or whatever, but say they're like way more into drama and acting and stuff. And everyone loves them and everyone follows them. And like this leader person, like everyone loves them and everyone can agree they're amazing. Just like an amazing person to be around. And they're funny, and you like all these positive traits. And then yet they could be taking the team towards some route that the leaders, like the captain on the team, didn't foresee coming. So it's kind of the, like the saying, like, oh, squirrel, there's this, like, and somebody follows like the train of the squirrel instead of focused on what they're supposed to be focused on. And you can have leaders like that on a team who are really wonderful, and like they make exceptional leaders because people love them. And so if people love them, then they're going to follow them, even if they're following them down not a bad path, but the wrong path to the team objective and the team goal. I hope that that's making some sense there. But if you want to be an exceptional leader, you need to think about your influence and your direction. If you're a captain, or if you're not the captain, but you really want to take over that leadership role, then there's a few ways I would recommend you go about doing that. The very first thing is you need to know your goal. So if leaders are responsible for like influence over direction, you need to know where the direction is, like where the path is. You need to know the specific destination. So if you're wanting to win a national title, maybe you're playing in, club, your juniors or whatever, and you want to win like gold bracket national title level stuff, you need to identify that specifically. If you're maybe not at that level, maybe you're on a high school team and you want to win your district, or maybe you want to win 5 games because you won 1 last year, or whatever it is. You need to identify the goal. Make sure your goal is achievable. That's one of the biggest things, that it's not so difficult that you wouldn't be able to reach it this season. So pick a goal that you really think you can achieve, but it's really going to put you outside of your comfort zone in order to do it. So don't pick something like, yeah, I can achieve it. We won 13 games last year, and I'm sure we can win another 5 this year. No, it needs to be something that really puts you outside of your comfort zone. And then with that goal, this is kind of off topic, but with that goal, make sure that you don't get locked in so strongly to that goal that you just don't see the big picture of things. If your goal is to win a state championship and you can't win a game, then you can maintain the goal of the state championship, but you have to be thinking, maybe we should set a smaller term goal, like win the next game, and really focus in on that smaller goal or whatever it is. So if you at any time want to level up your goal, like maybe you started and you thought, this will be good enough, and then soon enough you realize that your goal wasn't big enough, then you should definitely change that and set your sights a little higher. The next thing you want to do if you're a leader, after you pick your goal or your destination, is you need to think about the traits that will take individually to achieve that goal. So what can you do? Usually this means that you have to work hard every day, that you have to be a student of the game. In order to achieve your goals, you usually have to have like some passion in there. There's like several traits. You should definitely spend time thinking about it. What is it that everybody needs to be doing in order to hit the goal? And once you identify those traits, then keep them to yourself and go all in on them. So whatever you pick, like the top, say 5 traits that you've identified, this is what a championship team looks like. This is what, this is the behavior that we didn't have last year that we need this year, whatever that is. You personally go all in, 100%. Keep your mouth shut. Don't talk about it. Like, you talk about the goal, but don't be talking about what everyone needs to be doing all the time and pointing your finger at people. This is what we have to do. What you need to do is focus in on yourself, and for 30 days, make sure you're hitting those attributes. Like, for 30 days in a row, you're not making excuses. For 30 days in a row, you are getting after it every single day and really worrying about yourself. After you do that, and if those 5 attributes are something that you do all the time anyway, so like you're the hardest worker, well then maybe it's not quite 30 days or so. Maybe it's a little less time if you've been with the exact same team for several years and they really know you as that kind of person. Then it might not take quite as long. But generally speaking, around 30 days, you just work. And you just show everyone what you expect. You show them the path that you're on. And then after some time, you see if you can get some other people involved, kind of show them what you're doing. And maybe it's like a friend, somebody you're close to that you can actually talk about it with and not feel uncomfortable. But talk about your goals. So maybe you grab your best friend on the team and say, hey, this is what I want. Like, this is our goal. I think we need to be doing this, don't you? I think so. Let's see if we can get everyone else to do it just by the 2 of us amplifying, being an example for these 5 goals or these 5 attributes. So you get somebody else in there with you. And then, like I said, after some time, then you can start asking other people to go all in with you. It kind of becomes infectious too, so that everyone's like, they see some success, they see some passion, and passion is absolutely contagious. And so other people start to join you. And that one's kind of hard if you have a team that's difficult to deal with. You're probably gonna have to get your coach involved there, because if people are difficult, then the whole thing might be out of your control. But if everyone's pretty pleasant and fairly normal people, then you just behave the way you want others to behave, and it becomes contagious. The next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're really encouraging your teammates, that you're not spending all your time talking about those 5 attributes or whatever, but in as things like, hey, we need to work harder. Instead, you look at those attributes that you defined and you say, okay, you just you did really good in that. So maybe it's working really hard, or maybe it's passion or whatever it is. And you hey, that was an amazing great job. And you just encourage people. Anytime they do something positive, you just completely throw in all of the encouragement that you have. Anytime someone's doing something that you like, that you think aligns with that goal, you have to encourage it. After that, you can start to say, you can start to point out when people aren't. You want to be really careful with that because you don't want to cause friction and problems. But if you've put in 45 days of intense hard work and somebody else is dogging it, then you can be like, hey, come on, let's go. Or somebody else is being silly or off task or whatever. Or maybe not taking a team meeting seriously, then it starts to give you the right to say, come on, take her seriously, or, resolve some conflict there or whatever. It gives you a little more clout. last thing I'm going to mention, it's not really a step in the leadership process here, but one thing I'll mention is if you can make yourself really good, people will follow you, because people that want to be good will oftentimes copy somebody who's good, especially if they like them. So if you want to gain some leadership, really focus on making yourself the best player ever. Stop worrying about what anyone else is doing. So I think that's it. This was a little bit of a longer episode. You can go to mylittleathlete.biz/thedig and find this episode on captains and leadership. And it has a little bit probably better cohesive breakdown of all the things that I've mentioned. Very similar stuff, but I think I probably wrote it out a little bit better than me just babbling on for 12 minutes here. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing any more of your questions. You can always email me or DM me or whatever. And if you're watching on YouTube, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. So peace out and have a good day.